Mel Gibson has been opening up lately about some big plans for the future, specifically two long-talked-about sequels, Lethal Weapon 5 and The Passion of the Christ 2. Now, if you've followed Gibson's career, you'll know he became a household name back in the late 80s thanks to his role as Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon, where he teamed up with Danny Glover for a series that ran until 1998. But that wasn't the end of his journey. He stepped behind the camera too, directing the Oscar-winning Braveheart in 1995 and later diving into biblical epic territory with The Passion of the Christ in 2004. Things got rocky for him for a while because of personal controversies, and he kind of faded from the Hollywood spotlight. But lately, there's been a real buzz about him coming back strong, especially with talk that he might direct again. Naturally, that got people wondering what's up with those two sequels he's been linked to. In a recent chat with comicbook.com, Gibson gave some insight into where things stand. He talked about the complicated process of getting a movie off the ground, especially these days when so many factors come into play. Budget's a part of it, sure, but there's also a whole bunch of other reasons things either move forward or stall. He even compared it to the classic chicken or the egg dilemma. Basically, it's hard to say which project will happen first, or even if either will happen soon. Still, despite the uncertainty, Gibson seemed pretty upbeat. He didn't make any promises, because in Hollywood nothing is guaranteed until the cameras are rolling. But you could tell he's hopeful. He knows the odds, but he's not giving up. So what does all this mean for Lethal Weapon 5 and The Passion of the Christ 2? Well, both projects seem to be in play, even though they're facing a few challenges. Let's start with the Passion sequel. It's been over 20 years since the original came out, and that kind of time gap can complicate things, especially for a story that's supposed to pick up just a few days after the crucifixion of Jesus. There's been talk that Gibson's been scouting out locations for the film, which is now tentatively titled The Passion of the Christ Resurrection Part 1. That alone shows it's at least moving, even if it's still in the early days. The plan is to focus on Jesus' resurrection and what happened in the 3 days following his death. Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in the first film, has said he's interested in returning, but since he's 20 years older now, that brings up the issue of continuity. They'd probably have to use de-aging tech, like the kind used in Indiana Jones 5 or The Irishman, to make it work. So while it's not impossible, it's definitely a hurdle they'll have to clear. And speaking of The Passion, let's not forget how controversial the original movie was. Even 2 decades later, it's still one of the most talked about religious films out there. It was brutal, unapologetic, and, for some, deeply moving. But it also got flack for its violence and alleged anti-Semitism. So naturally, any sequel is going to come under a microscope. That said, Gibson doesn't seem interested in playing it safe. He's made it clear that this next installment will be even more ambitious, possibly his most ambitious yet. He's even teased that the story will explore realms like Sheol, the underworld, and include fallen angels, which honestly sounds more like a fantasy epic than a traditional religious film. In fact, Gibson described it as an acid trip, which gives you a pretty wild idea of where he wants to go with this. According to what he told Joe Rogan, the story will stretch all the way from the fall of the angels to the death of the last apostle. So this isn't just about Jesus coming back, it's about something cosmic. To get it right, Gibson is teaming up with his brother Donal and Braveheart screenwriter Randall Wallace. The three of them have apparently been collaborating for years, and now they're targeting 2026 to begin filming. Gibson admitted that it's going to be tough to pull off, and even said he's not 100% sure he can make it happen. But that's never stopped him before, and it sounds like he's willing to swing for the fences. Now, when it comes to Caviezel playing Jesus again, he's on board. Gibson asked him if he was ready to do it one more time, and Caviezel reportedly said, "I'm all in." Still, because of the timeline, the actor would need some serious digital touch-ups to look like the 33-year-old version of Jesus we saw in the first film. Gibson knows this, and he's already planning to use CGI to de-age him, which is kind of poetic given the movie's theme of resurrection. Interestingly, there were earlier reports suggesting Gibson might cast a younger actor instead, but it looks like Caviezel will reprise the role after all. And he's not the only one coming back. Maia Morgenstern is returning as Mary, and Francesco DeVito will again play Peter. So Gibson is clearly trying to maintain continuity while still pushing the boundaries of what this sequel can be. Switching gears a bit, let's talk about Lethal Weapon 5. This one's a bit different because Gibson doesn't actually own the rights to the franchise. That means even if he's fully on board, the final decision comes down to the studio. Still, he's not sitting around waiting for someone else to make the call. Over the summer, he confirmed that Jez Butterworth, a well-regarded screenwriter, had joined the project, which is definitely a good sign. What Gibson wants to do with Lethal Weapon 5 is still under wraps, but he's hinted that it would lean into the legacy of the original cast. So that means he'd want to recapture the chemistry he had with Danny Glover. Considering how iconic their partnership was, it makes sense. The magic of those movies wasn't just in the action, it was in the banter, the friendship, and the shared exhaustion of two cops who'd seen it all. If Gibson can bring that back, fans will absolutely show up. Of course, there's always risk when reviving a beloved franchise. Sometimes it works. Top Gun Maverick, anyone? And sometimes it falls flat. But Gibson has proven he's a capable director, with Apocalypto, Hacksaw Ridge, and of course Braveheart, all earning critical praise. So if anyone can breathe new life into these old favorites, it's probably him. And let's not forget, this isn't just about career revival. Gibson genuinely seems invested in telling these stories. He's not chasing trends or going for box office gold just for the sake of it. Whether it's the gritty streets of Lethal Weapon or the divine struggle depicted in The Passion, there's a passion, no pun intended, in the way he talks about his work. For now, we'll have to wait and see how things unfold. The Resurrection of the Christ looks like it'll start filming this August in Rome, with a potential release window sometime in 2026. That means we're still a ways off, but the pieces are definitely starting to fall into place. And with Caviezel once again stepping into the sandals of Jesus, Gibson might just pull off something unforgettable again. He summed it up nicely during his interview. You gotta walk up to the plate and take a swing. It might be a wild swing, and it might not land exactly where he hopes, but it's clear that Mel Gibson is ready to take that chance. And honestly, that's what makes the whole thing exciting. And that wraps up today's video. If you want to stay in the loop with all the latest movie and series news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a big thumbs up, because I'll be bringing you more updates on upcoming movies before they even drop. So keep an eye out for that, along with the latest on your other favorite shows and movies. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.